Ambitions over 2023 presidency generates intense undercurrent in major political parties in Nigeria as notable Nigerians present a new political movement, jitters across the political landscape. We dissect that on the program tonight. And the APC today released the names of its campaign team for the Edo governorship election to be led by Governor of Kano State, Abdullahi Ganduje, with former chairman Oyegun and Oshomole on the list alongside the governor of Imo and Lagos states. Hello everyone and welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbaloye in Lagos. So much to talk about, and it's about two major issues tonight: zoning and 2023 presidency. Of course, we are talking about a new political movement. Mr. Agbakoba has released what may become a shocker. Tonight, we dissect those kind of issues for you. Let's begin tonight by telling you about the plans of the All Progressives Congress APC on the Edo governorship election. Today, the party's caretaker committee, headed by Governor Malabuni, has set up a campaign team. The Kano State Governor, Abdullahi Ganduje, has been appointed to head the 49-member APC campaign council. The governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, is to serve as deputy chairman of the campaign council, while Mr. Abbas Brahima is secretary. Other members include the deputy president of the Senate, Ovie Omo Agege, Kogi State Governor Yaya Bello, Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, former national chairman of the party, John Oyegun, and Adams Oshomole, Minister of the Niger Delta Affairs, Godswill Akpabio, former governor of Abia State, and former governor of Imo State, Rochas Okorocha, amongst others. The campaign council is to be inaugurated on Monday, July 6th, at the party's national secretariat. We have some other stories for you on our political roundup before we dive straight into our issues to discuss tonight.
President Muhammadu Buhari has sworn into office 45 commissioners and 1 chairman into the Federal Character Commission, the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, and the Federal Civil Service Commission. 37 commissioners and 1 chairman were sworn into the Federal Character Commission, 6 commissioners were sworn into the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, and 2 commissioners were sworn into the Federal Civil Service Commission. The House of Representatives has set up an ad hoc committee to investigate the financial budgetary provisions, approvals, and multilateral donations of skills acquisition and related programs of the federal government and its agencies. This is equal to a motion of urgent public importance raised by Representative Emmanuel Ego, questioning the social investment program and skills acquisition program of the federal government, which it says are part of the sustainable tools for the eradication of unemployment amongst the youth, but have not yielded the desired results.
The House also aware that adequate provision cannot be put in place to ensure the effective monitoring and implementation of these programs, as a greater proportion of our youth remain unemployed.
2 local government council chairmen have been suspended by the Plateau State House of Assembly in what the legislators describe as insubordination and illegalities by the suspended chairmen at their respective domains. Speaker of the Plateau State House of Assembly announced the suspension on the floor during plenary, with the committee chairman on information clarifying the reasons for the suspension to include non-adherence to directive of the legislators after intervening on disputes among councillors and the chairman in the 2 councils.
The Assembly some weeks ago invited the 2 of them based on the litigation that was on the table of the Speaker by the councillors and the clerk. The 2 local governments at some points had some face-off with their councillors, and they refused to pay them their entitlements. Now, because of that, the House invited those 2 chairmen to this very chamber at the executive session, sat with them, discussed with them, and mandated them to go and pay them. Now, they were given an ultimatum of some days. The ultimatum got expired and they were unable to pay. So that attracted the punishment they are receiving now for a suspension of 3 months.
One of the suspended chairman, Abbas Adamu Wokdong of Kanam Local Government Council, described the allegation as untrue and a means of discrediting the leadership of the council in spite of fulfilling the legislator's directives.
The House leadership and the members rejected the clerk but tweeted. So when they waded into the matter, I persuaded them, and the clerk is right now in office. So to say that any clerk was refused to be admitted or whatsoever, and even if that happened, the law gives them equally the power to agree or not to agree. Very explicit. And when they disagree during the mediation, we return him, and the clerk is in office. So whichever way, whether it is suspension without salary or whether they have not been reinstated or the clerk, everything are foregoing issues. And when they called me, they gave me 3 days. I gave them evidence of payment of their salaries, and they were fully informed of the reinstatement of the clerk.
Thank you so much, everyone. And let's get into the conversation. It's perhaps something on the minds of political players in Nigeria, and I'm going to perhaps unearth it for you to digest tonight with my panelists on the program. Yesterday, over 30 prominent Nigerian activists, academics, and other professionals, some of them also politicians, launched a new political movement ahead of the 2023 general elections. The movement, called the National Consultative Front, was made public in a communique. The group reportedly had a month-long nationwide consultation and virtual meetings. Members of the group include former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Gali Naba, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, Obadiah Melafia, Mr. Olisa Agbakoba, who are disowned these idea, Mr. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Abubakar Umar, Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, Jibo Ibrahim, Yaba Gisani, Inkotoyo, Isa Aremu, Chidio Dinkalu, and Shehu Sani. They may have, that idea may have caught the fancy of some major political players in the country, although former NBA President Olisa Agbakoba has disowned the group's plans in series of tweets today. But the issue of zoning has also come up alongside this kind of conversation about a new political idea and ideology, discussions and on how Nigeria will go when President Buhari concludes his second term in office. President Muhammadu Buhari from the northern part of the country. Which zone of the country should power go to has become a major issue across some of the major political parties. Let's get to it, everyone. I have joining me from our Abuja studio, the national chairman of the ADP, Alhaji Yabaji Sani. Thank you so much, Alhaji Sani, for coming tonight. And also here, a member of the PDP and political analyst, Mr. Ken Okolugbo in our Lagos studio. Thank you so much, Mr. Okolugbo, for your time.
It's always my pleasure.
And from London is Mr. Kayode Ogundamisi. Thank you so much, Mr. Ogundamisi, for your time tonight. Let's get the conversation started with Alhaji Yabaji Sani. Let me ask you, from your wealth of experience and from what you see and imagine in the Nigerian political landscape, where do you think power should go? Because this has been a major conversation, and already agitations are across some regions of the country saying that power should shift to the zone. When President Muhammadu Buhari concludes his second term before 2023, where do you think that power should rotate to?
Thank you, Sean. I think Nigeria has, by now, grown past the issue of sentimental issues to decide who governs the country. This is a 21st century economy, Nigeria. This is a country that requires somebody that will have the competence, will have the hand-on experience to move this country forward from where we are today. And if at this point in time we are still talking about who is an Igbo man, who is a Yoruba man, who is an Hausa man, and who is a Muslim or Christian that should run the affairs of this country as if it matters, I'm sorry. Like I said, it's a distraction. And it's a contraption that we should be able to grow out of, because Nigeria has that can-do spirit, individuals that can really move this country beyond where we are today. If you look at the experience we have had with this zoning system, zoning has thrown up, a lot of incompetence, a lot of crisis, a lot of backwardness, in terms of the trajectory of what has been happening in this country. Look at what is happening even now with President Muhammadu Buhari. Look at what is happening. If zoning is anything that will touch the lives of the grassroots, as it's supposed to be, why should Katsina people be taking up arms against their own son? President Muhammadu Buhari, why should they be suffering under an administration that is headed by somebody from that state? Look at what happened during even Tofa and later Abiola's election. Tofa lost in Kano, and Abiola won. So, which means it is not about the person. It is not about whether you are a Muslim or Christian or a Yoruba man or Hausa man. Nigerians are looking for somebody that can deliver, somebody that can change, the narratives of what we're having in this country. So the point I'm trying to make is that the zoning is elitist. It's about the elites who are trying to find a way by which they can manipulate the process so that they can continue to have access to the wealth of this country at the expense of the masses of this country. I don't know how the man in Katsina is better than the man in say, maybe Calabar or somebody in Ibadan or something like that, today, in today's governance. So what we need, and we must be able to do that, and this is the time to do it. Look for those who are competent, those who have the experience, those who have the exposure, those who know what this country needs in terms of turning the economy around so that we can be able to take advantage of this great promise.
Yeah.
Which is
so let me get the view of, you are from the northern region of the country. We have Mr. Okolugbo. Interestingly, we had a president from your zone of the country, the South, in President Goodluck Jonathan, who is also from your political party. Do you agree with what Alhaji Abajisan has just said? Zoning does not really matter.
It's easy to say that zoning actually promotes mediocrity. But will Jonathan have a precedent if the North did not take over power and we had a Southerner from the Southern minority? The answer is no. If Yar'Adua from the Northwest did not become president after Obasanjo, maybe we wouldn't have Jonathan as his running mate. Jonathan would definitely not have been able to become president if he had run as a candidate without having been a president by doctrine of necessity and with the death of Yar'Adua. We must face realities. We must not try to... If you're a good student of history, when you talk of Tofa and Abiola, that's not the same situation we have here today. Kano, for example, produces the highest votes in the country as we speak now. Lagos is next to Kano. So it therefore follows that for you to be able to win an election in this country, you must have the votes from Kano and Lagos to be able to become president.
Before you can be a president in Nigeria, the North needs to sign to it in terms of votes.
That's exactly what I'm saying, because they call it block votes from the Northwest.
Kano, Bauchi,
Bauchi is even northeast. We're talking about Kano.
No, I'm saying the northern region
the whole north. So if you don't allow zoning, you make it impossible for certain regions of the country to be able to aspire to presidency. For example, in my opinion, the Southwest have had their presidency, they've had their fair share in Obasanjo, they've had their fair share in the Northwest. We had Yar'Adua, we've had President Buhari, and the South was lucky to have had 5 years of the presidency. Naturally, we should talk about the Southeast, and next to the Southeast should be the Northeast.
All right.
And next to the Northeast, it should be the North Central.
Let's hear from Mr. Ogundamisi.
That's what I actually think.
Mr. Ogundamisi, do you agree with this, especially in view of some of the political movement that we hear led by the likes of Mr. Fami Falana or Obieze Kwesili? The issue of zoning, how does this come to you for 2023?
Thank you, Shehu. In theory, as whoever emerges as Nigeria's president should come from the best of Nigeria. It shouldn't matter what part of the region they come from. I mean, the president can come from Zungeru or Adamawa or Port Harcourt or Lagos or wherever. But in practice, politics is a game of number. Nigeria is not just Nigeria, it's an association of ethnic nationalities that form a nation, and every part of the country would have to have a fair share of going into the center. I think what we should be talking about is to make the center unattractive so that it wouldn't matter who becomes the president. If we decentralize and take power to the regions, it wouldn't matter whether the president of the country comes from a particular part of the country. But the reality is there must be the zoning has helped to stabilize the system. But we should actually stop talking about zoning in terms of southwest, southeast, south-south. the minorities, but of course, if you want to emerge as a president of Nigeria, you shouldn't just emerge as a president from a region, but as a competent person. What we've had in the last few years is the worst of those regions coming out to represent the regions at the center.
All right, let's take a breather. But when we come back, we look at it, and the big question is, how does this look? For example, when we hear the likes of Atiku Abubakar's son reportedly saying his father might run in 2023. If power returns to the north, how will that look politically for Nigeria in terms of power sharing? And again, the political movement, what does that bring to the table? We discuss that and more after this break. Join us again, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. The issue of power sharing, zoning of the presidency is a major factor in Nigeria's politics. Even in the state, this is a major factor because of our ethnic differences. So tonight, my panelists, Mr. Ken Okolubu of the PDP, Alhaji Abagisani, a member, the national chairman of the ADP, and Mr. Kaudi Ogunamisi, a political analyst. The three of them are sharing views on how this is panning out, especially as we hear now, a political movement is in the fray. Let me get back to our Abuja studio with Alhaji Abagisani. Your name is on that list too as one of the NCF and the ones planning the political movement. How would this go? And what is the agenda? You said you want to save Nigeria. That's the agenda of the group.
Yeah, Sean, like you know, in this country, the problem we have is that of top to the bottom, top to bottom kind of problem. So what the group is trying to do is to see how we can resolve, the problem that we have at the top, of the pyramid, which is the elites. How do we reorientate ourselves? Because the issue is that of people coming to power and thinking that they are there to be served, not to serve. We must change the orientation of the people of this country. The group wants to sensitize Nigerians to own, the ownership of the government, because the average Nigerian does not think that he has power to influence what happens in the government. And indeed, he doesn't have, because when elections take place, the votes do not count. So we want a situation where votes will count. We want a situation where an average Nigerian will take his rightful place by way of his voice, the voiceless. We want to give them voice, by this group, meaning that before somebody can become the president of this country, we must be able to take the person through certain checklist that to guarantee that when the person becomes the president, he can actually deliver. And you can see that
Let me
Nigerians
ask,
today
so apologies to Botin, Alhaji Abagisani.
Confused.
Sorry, Alhaji Abagisani, let me ask, is the agenda of this group aimed at 2023 presidency, and are you coalescing into a political party?
Well, of course, there's no way you can participate in an election without, a political platform. So if you want to effect a change, in the government, then you have to, of course, participate on a platform of a political party. And so, differently, at the end of the day, it has to be a political party that will be the vehicle by which all these things will be achieved. And of course, we have parties today that have the similar ideology with what the group represents, which is a credible alternative, which is to have something that Nigerians can be proud of, to have a political party and that will represent their interests.
So Alhaji Abagisani, so that we can bring in the other panelists on the program, let me ask you a very quick one and probably a quick answer. Should power go to the north in 2023? You are from that region of the country. Would you say it's a fair share or it's a fair game?
The issue of power, like I've said, I'm not a believer in anything like zoning because it has not worked for this country. We must believe. I understand that, yes, there are certain dynamics that we are a collection of nations. People want to say yes. But at the end of the day, what matters to me is, am I able to have 2 square meals? Is an average Nigerian able to have 2 square meals? Is he able to be treated when he is sick? Is he able to educate his children? Is he able to feel proud of his country? And if it is somebody from the north that will give me that, believe you me, a lot of Nigerians will be happy to have that. Because, like I said, the issue of zoning is an elitist thing, believe you me, and Nigerians are waking up to that. I understand the sentiments. I understand the fact that, the regions, the collection of people that we have as Nigeria, everybody wants to be at the center so that they can decide. But what has come out is that it doesn't really translate to the man on the street. Doesn't
Okay, so
benefit
Alaji
from that
Sani,
kind of
let,
thing.
let me ask Mr. Okolugbo, who did not agree with you on that point. Mr. Okolugbo, we are hearing talks within your party, the PDP, that your party might field a northern candidate in 2023. Do you think that would be fair?
I think that's too early for you to judge.
If that happens,
in my party, I have told you what I think as a person, that first we should have the Southeast, and after the Southeast we should have the Northeast, and we should have the North Central in that order. But if we don't find a Southeasterner in my party that is strong enough to contest for the presidential election, and it becomes a Northerner, then we'll have to go with it.
You're an Igbo man from Delta State.
I'm an Okwani man, but they call us Delta.
Yeah, but
if you say Igbo, well, I understand where you're coming from.
Absolutely.
I
so
agree,
for your Igbo brothers in the Southeast, where the division is over whether or not it should come to them, what do you think the aspirations will be?
It will be most unfair, because they can't actually get the aspiration in APC right now, because apparently from what APC has put together, they have not made any provisions for the Southeasterners in their party. They have only just kept them at bay because they see that they haven't won elections in the Southeast. PDP has always won elections in the Southeast. And if you look at what Peter Obi did in the last elections, you agree with me that he did very well in that zone. And he even had a lot of influence even in Lagos, where you have a lot of Southeasterners.
Could Peter Obi be your presidential candidate in the PDP?
He wouldn't be a bad presidential candidate. I wouldn't lie about that.
Let me bring in Mr. Ogundamisi. If we draw in what happened recently in the APC, which a lot of people say, look, either the leaders in those in the parties, the APC or PDP, whichever of the political parties agree that what is happening in their party is linked to 2023 or not. What happened in the APC, if you take a lead from that, what are your permutations and what do you see happening? Can power go back to the north? If that happens, would that be fair?
It's quite possible, because the reality is the reason why you're having a lot of crises within both political parties, but with APC in particular, is because the incumbent president is not going to be contesting in 2023. So a lot of the gladiators are playing the politics way ahead of time. And I think that is what the so-called third force should learn from, to start planning ahead of time, but in such a way that it's not going to affect governance. What I see might come out to play. If the Southwest outsmarts itself, keeps fighting, there might be an emerging national candidate from any part of the country that could sell him or herself to the country, and people would just say, you know what, these guys are not even organized, let's go for this particular person. So the PDP might be able to spring out a surprise candidate. If, say, in some ways, the Southeast or the Southwest or the South-South are unable to organize themselves. So if you have a technocrat just emerge, you'll be surprised that even this coalition could rally around such a person. But the issue of zoning is not bad in itself. What is bad is that when power is zoned to this region, they do not present the best from the region. They present the worst from that region. Zoning is not written in our constitution, but it's an unwritten agreement amongst the political class for stability.
All right. So let's close the program now. I take that as Mr. Ogundamisi's final words, but let's share the next 30 seconds. And so maybe I can get Ms. Alaji Yabagisani and Mr. Okolugbo's final words in 15 seconds a pair. So Alaji Yabagisani, what will be your final word, and where should Nigerians be looking forward to come 2023, and in preparations for that in 50 seconds, please?
I think Nigeria should look for somebody who can really deliver, because this economy is an economy of promise that can give us, and then can end all these the disasters that we have in this country, of hunger, of killings, and what have you. And it can only happen when you have a competent person. It doesn't have to be a Yoruba man, Hausa man, Igbo man, or whatever you want to call it. It's to be somebody that can deliver. If that is not the case, believe you me, we will still be in this vicious cycle of killing each other, hunger, and what have you.
Mr. Okolibo, your final word.
We need somebody that can get us out of the economic doldrums. And not only get us out of the economic doldrums, but actually fight corruption in all its ramifications. That's exactly the two things that are bedeviling us. And fight security with a frontal and with an aggressive approach.
You have a lot of that in your party?
We do.
Let's leave it at that. And thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming. Mr. Ken Okolibo, Alaji Yabaji Sani from Abuja, Mr. Kayode Ogunam, Mr. Good to see you. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming on tonight. That's our show. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.